This is the shocking truth about what covert narcissists do when you stop reacting. Have you ever stopped to wonder what actually happens to a covert narcissist when you finally stop feeding them a reaction? Do they implode, scramble, or double down? Today we're going to pull that curtain back and explain the psychology behind their behavior, what changes when you stop providing emotional fuel, why they do what they do, and how understanding this gives you real power. If you've been trapped in a cycle of manipulation and confusion, this video will give you clarity and tools to stay steady. Hello everyone, welcome back. This week I listened to some friends sharing their stories about still being trapped in old patterns, reacting, defending themselves, explaining, and then ending up hurt again. From the outside it's easy to say, just don't react. But you know how hard that is when you're in the middle of it. The manipulator's tactics are designed to yank you off balance. They trigger deliberately. That is the essential point. Their goal is to provoke a response from you. Once you understand that the provocation is intentional and not a reflection of your worth, it becomes much easier to choose detachment instead of getting drawn in. Let's unpack why reaction is their oxygen. Narcissists, especially the covert type, live off other people's emotional energy. They obsess over your responses. What sets you off, what makes you cave, and what makes you chase. It doesn't matter whether the response is outrage, tears, or frantic attempts to reason with them. Any strong reaction proves there's a lever to pull. These people are not wired for authentic emotional reciprocity. They can read emotions, they're often excellent at spotting cues, but they don't truly feel them. That's the cruel paradox. They are experts at mimicking care and at exploiting vulnerability, but they do not experience empathy the way most of us do. So when you react, they don't see a hurt human. They see evidence of control. Your feelings become the scoreboard telling them, I still have you. Knowing that gives you a huge advantage. If their behavior is a deliberate test, a probe to see whether you will bend, then your response is the test result. When you hold your ground and refuse to give them the dramatic feedback they crave, their script breaks. They expect you to escalate, to beg, to explain, to spiral. When you don't, it undermines the entire dynamic. That doesn't mean being cold or uncaring. It means choosing actions that protect your boundaries and preserve your dignity. It means showing up calm, consistent, and unreactive so their attempts at control lose their impact. Practically speaking, detachment is both a psychological and behavioral move. Psychologically, you remind yourself that their provocation is designed, not personal. Behaviorally, you match your words with actions, short answers, delayed replies, or no replies at all. You stop providing the immediate emotional feedback loop they depend on. Over time, this change forces them to adapt, and not always in ways that are healthy for them. Some will escalate, some will attempt charm offensives, some will smear or triangulate, and some will recede into sulk and silence. All of those reactions tell you something. They are scrambling because the easy supply has been cut off. Understanding their need for reaction also changes your expectations. You stop treating every outburst as a meaningful argument to be resolved and start seeing it as a tactic to be managed. That shift prevents you from taking their behavior onto yourself and keeps you focused on what matters: your safety, your peace, and your recovery. When you stop reacting, you are not being cruel, you are reclaiming your agency. And when they notice that your presence and energy are no longer available on demand, the dynamic finally begins to loosen. So let this be the takeaway. Their provocations are not proof you're weak or oversensitive. They are evidence that you matter to them in exactly the way they need you to, as supply. Your silence, your boundary, your refusal to engage on their terms is the clearest, most powerful message you can give. It's a message that changes the game, forces a reckoning, and, most importantly, protects you. The covert narcissist thrives on provoking reactions because each one validates their sense of importance. They depend on subtle jabs, manipulative guilt trips, and those quiet little digs that seem harmless at first but cut deep. Every tear, every argument, every defensive explanation convinces them they hold significance in your life. For them, this is proof that they matter. What they fail to recognize, however, is that with every manipulation and every forced emotional response, they are quietly dismantling the very relationship they are trying to control. Their behavior destroys intimacy and connection, even as they interpret your reactions as signs of loyalty and emotional investment. So what happens when you stop reacting altogether? This is where things shift dramatically. The moment you cut off their emotional oxygen, they escalate. Expect them to push harder, recycle old arguments, and lean heavily on guilt trips that may have worked in the past. Psychologists call this an extinction burst, a final surge of manipulative energy when the usual tactics stop producing results. It's very similar to a child throwing a louder tantrum when candy is withheld. The desperate need for control fuels this behavior. Another strategy they employ is slipping into the victim role. They will spin stories of how unfairly they've been treated, emphasizing their suffering and painting themselves as the injured party. Poor me becomes their central theme, designed to disarm you emotionally. If you buy into it, your empathy can be weaponized against you, softening your stance and pulling you back into the cycle. The moment you comfort them or reassure them, they've regained their leverage. At other times, they retreat into silence, withdrawing communication and offering the infamous silent treatment. The goal is simple: to make you chase after them. By shutting you out, they hope you'll panic and come running to re-establish contact, which reassures them that you still care and that they remain central in your life. When you don't take the bait, however, it has the opposite effect. Your lack of pursuit signals insignificance, and that realization is intolerable to them. In tandem with these tactics, they begin scanning for fresh sources of supply. If you no longer deliver the emotional responses they crave, they will turn outward, seeking new people to manipulate, charm, or control. This constant search for external validation stems from their inner emptiness. Because they cannot generate a stable sense of self-worth internally, they are perpetually dependent on others to feed their ego. Without someone reflecting back their importance, they feel hollow and unanchored. The bottom line is clear. When you stop reacting, you dismantle the machinery that sustains their power. You break the cycle of manipulation. Your detachment does not just protect your peace. It forces the narcissist to confront their own lack of significance, something they are deeply terrified of. So what does this mean for you? It means freedom. It means regaining control over your emotions, preserving your dignity, and creating space for authentic relationships built on respect rather than coercion. By refusing to play their game, you reclaim your agency and take back your power. This is the moment your power begins to return. When you stop reacting, you remove the control that others once had over you. The truth is, the only reason you were responding so intensely was because someone deliberately provoked you into it. By refusing to play into their games, you draw a line in the sand. No one gets to manipulate your emotions. In doing so, you also retrain your nervous system to find calm instead of chaos. You teach yourself that you no longer need to live in constant fight or flight, bracing for the next blow. By letting go of reactivity, you build emotional resilience. This isn't about denying reality. It's about choosing peace over turbulence. And in that choice, you begin to see just how powerless their tactics become when they no longer touch you. Over time, you grow stronger and less susceptible, while the narcissist loses their grip. It's important to remember that people who constantly trigger you, who always seem to pull you into conflict, aren't doing it by accident. There's intention behind the chaos they create. They thrive on seeing you unsettled, because your reaction serves them. But you were never meant to be an emotional servant for anyone. Not a partner, not a family member, not even someone you share responsibilities with. Boundaries are your safeguard, and honoring your own emotions is a right, not a luxury. Those who continually provoke you are toxic, plain and simple. Their inability to regulate their own emotions drives them to project misery onto others, and they find satisfaction when they see you in pain because it distracts them from their own emptiness. And let's be clear, someone who deliberately hurts you, who stays conflict for their own satisfaction, is not acting out of love or friendship. That kind of behavior is not a sign of care. It's a sign of emotional sickness. Ask yourself honestly, why would anyone who truly loves you want to see you upset? Why would someone intentionally push you into distress? There is no healthy explanation for it. That's why this is the point where you must stand firm. Stand strong in the knowledge that you do not deserve this treatment, ever. There are no excuses that justify it. If this message resonates with you, I want you to know that you're not alone. I do offer one-to-one consultations, and you can find details in the description box below. If you found this video helpful, please give it a thumbs up and consider subscribing for more in-depth content. My goal is to help you break free from toxic patterns, reclaim your peace, and build a life where you no longer bend under manipulation. Thank you so much for spending this time with me, and I look forward to seeing you in the next video. Take care, and goodbye for now. This is the shocking truth about what covert